Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today, I have a terrifying lineup of encounters to share with you. Before we get into those, a couple of links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and my merch store to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Those links are in the description below. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1, 2, and 3, the audiobook versions. Written and researched by Tom Lyons. Narrated and produced by me, Jeffrey Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes. The links to those are also in the description as well. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with today's upload, shall we? Today's first encounter. 2019, I was having a really hard time being around people. I eventually packed my belongings up and went to live my life at the age of 30 by myself in the woods. Scouting areas in Delaware County, which is in the suburbs of Philadelphia, looking for a perfect spot to spend my summer. After my long journey testing different areas out, having bad experiences such as my tent flooding after heavy rains, I found a huge hill that probably went up a few thousand feet. This certain hill was on a giant rock outcropping with many beautiful stones such as garnet embedded in the host rock. I honestly thought I had found the perfect camp, secluded from everyone and everything, surrounded by a large creek. The area was well planted with huge trees and many sorts. So, due to all these factors being perfect for what I was looking for, I set my tent right up on the top of the hill. The tent that I owned was a one-person tent, literally just big enough for me to sleep in, which is all I really needed. I'm pretty much set. All I had left to do was create a barrier with the local tree branches so I could keep out anyone and hide in my tent. Upon stringing up a huge wall of branches in the area and putting trip lines around my campsite, I began living my life. Days passed that summer before the incident that changed my life forever happened, so before I dive into this experience, I want to add that it would nearly be impossible for any dog or anyone to get up this hill. Someone would have to be extremely dedicated in finding this place to get to it. During my adventure living alone in the wilderness, my brother would occasionally meet me a bit away to drop off supplies such as beer, food, water, etc. On a beautiful summer night after it had just rained very heavily, I was lying on the hill right outside of my tent. I was immersed in an extremely dense fog. The whole area looked as if it was covered in a huge cloud. I was tired from a long walk earlier, so eventually, when it hit around 10 p.m., I retired to my tent. I crawled in, lied down with all my equipment around me. It was extremely cramped in there. I zipped up the door flap and began to relax. I started reading a good book I had when I noticed it was getting really late, so I got my flashlight output on my headlamp and just chilled. Periodically, I would text my sister to let her know that I was okay and just converse about certain things. It hit about 1 in the morning when I just started having a really strange feeling. You know, a feeling something is wrong. I tried to shrug it off, but it would not go away. I lied there with my headlamp on, fully illuminated. My tent had a tiny opening at the top with the mesh, so you could see out of it. Other than that, you can't really see anything on the outside. As I was reading, I suddenly heard something run very loudly toward my tent. Right on my left-hand side, it stopped right next to me and began to loudly bark, almost as if a dog is right in your face and about ready to attack. I suddenly shuddered with fear, saying to myself, "This cannot be a dog. There's no possible way anything could get to my tent with my barricade, my trip lines, or at least not without making an extreme struggle and lots of noise." So in complete fear, hearing this beast growl and bark like a maniac, I fumbled to get my phone in a panic. I started texting my sister saying, "Listen, there's something outside of my tent, and it's pretty pissed off. She texted me back saying maybe it's a dog. I'm like, yo, a dog could not get up this hill. It's impossible. The thing stopped harassing me and eventually disappeared for about 10 minutes. I was very frightened. After I heard what I heard, I dialed 911 on my phone and held it, just in case the thing came back. After an hour passes and nothing happened, I began to relax a little. I kicked my shoes off, cracked open a beer, and resumed to read. Let me just say, I've been in the woods for 6 months straight before, and I've never had anything like this happen. It was so chilling that I get sick thinking about it. Lie there, time starts to pass, no sign of this creature. Too terrified to even look out of my tent. Plus, at this point, the ground was covered in fog. 3 a.m. rolls around. I'm firmly holding my phone in my right hand just in case. When all of a sudden, I was completely paralyzed. I lied there in a state of fear, so intense that I thought I was going to die. Then something grabbed me. Whatever grabbed me began picking me up and smashing me into the ground. This thing was so strong that I felt like a rag doll. It just kept squeezing me and shaking me as if I was nothing. I looked at my phone in my hand desperately, trying to move my thumb to hit the dial button, but it was impossible. The thing was breathing so loud, making noises so sinister that I got the impression this thing crawled right out of hell and wants to take me out of my tent. The cries from it were almost like a loud pulsing sound, similar, I guess, to a giant heart beating out of control. It beat the living hell out of me. I pictured myself being carried away by this horrible thing into a cave to be experimented on or something really evil. After fighting for probably 7 minutes while being completely paralyzed, it suddenly stopped. The state of fear I was in was so intense at that moment. I was free. That thumb immediately hit 911. I got a girl dispatcher on the line. I thought to myself, what do I say? I'm in the middle of nowhere and I was attacked by something. No one is going to take this serious. I hung the phone up and started texting my sister, saying, listen, here's my location. I was just attacked by something. I got no answer. I kept texting, no answer. I cowered in my tent for the next few hours till the sun came up. I was so worn out from the beatdown that I crawled out of the tent in extreme pain. After a complete search of the area for footprints or a sign of something that had been there, I came up empty. No lines were tripped, no branches were moved, and my tent wasn't damaged. Doesn't make much sense because I'm damaged. I could barely walk. Eventually, I moved my campsite, got a bigger tent. I still don't know what it was that attacked me. I don't know what that thing was menacingly barking outside of my tent. I'm literally scared to this day. I now know that there are things so powerful out there that they can literally paralyze you by just coming close. Apparently, they can beat the hell out of you through your tent without leaving any sign of having been there. This all really happened, and I wish that I could tell the story better through typing, but that's all I've got. Was it a Dogman? Was it a Bigfoot? I don't know. But it could have killed me, and very easily if it wanted to do so. It could have made me a missing person in a heartbeat. I don't know how or why I survived. I have a feeling that this thing was pissed at me for tearing down giant tree branches to fortify my camp, but not exactly sure. That day I tore a lot of branches down. Then I was attacked. So to anyone out there, if you're camping, don't harm any type of tree or plant that might trigger these things to attack. Today's second part of the upload. Spending my high school and early adult years in southern Kentucky, I wanted to share some actual experiences I had with friends while being hoodlums in the countryside. Preface this, I was the most brazen and ignorant of my friend group. They were all locals. My family was from the city, and yes, I fell for the whole snipe hunt gag. The most particular incident occurred on a very dull night in the middle of summer. We were all around 18, 19 years of age, Since it was such a small town, there was hardly anything to do. Most of us were unemployed and had no early morning obligations, so naturally this turned into an all-night misadventure. Two of us, me being one, were notorious adrenaline junkies. Now, if any of you lived or live in a small town, you know how utterly dull it can be, especially for younger people, which turns into all forms of juvenile entertainment for a desperate need for stimulation. Our idea for stimulation that night was to steal some road signs. It was a thing we did somewhat often when all other ideas failed to suffice. We usually targeted only interesting ones around the country. But at this point, we had gotten them all, so we decided to go to a county over. In my friend group, there were 5 of us. One happened to have their mom's GPS system, and we found one sign that I absolutely had to have. Loveless Lane. And off we went. I don't remember what time it was, but it definitely had to be past 11 p.m. Most likely later, as we didn't want to risk anyone being awake while we broke the signs off the post. This particular road sign was at a dead-end backcountry road. On the way in, we spotted a tractor crossing sign. My best friend Kay was thrilled and thought it would be hilarious, so we all decided to steal it on the way out. Now, this specific sign was metal and not the usual fiberglass that is used for road names, so we couldn't simply snap it off. We'd either have to pull the whole post out of the ground and wrench it off using tools. This sign was directly across from a gravel driveway. This will come into play later. We never felt an uneasy going down the road, but I'll acknowledge we were very much in the middle of fucking nowhere, and it was, of course, extremely dark. Only thing to note was the sheer amount of wildlife out on the road. Several possum, raccoon, a coyote, and a few deer. All very common to see and not usually on the same trip and road. I made a joke about how it was like a safari drive. We get to Loveless Lane sign and we head back out. We came up with a game plan to steal the tractor crossing sign. S was driving, I was in the passenger seat, K was in the back behind me, and girl 1 and girl 2 were in the other passengers in the back. When we got closer to the sign, S didn't want to risk getting hit in the road, so we opted to kill the headlights and pull into the gravel driveway. S then covered the interior lights with their hat to avoid any risk of being seen. Kay and I were supposed to jump out quickly, run across the road, and get to work on the sign while the others kept lookout. Kay and I had our doors ajar when girl 1 goes, "What is that?" in a confused tone. Kay and I whip our heads forward and we see this looming silhouette, maybe 12-ish feet from the front of the car. It's dark. We're still of the mind we are going to steal this sign, but we also don't want to get shot or in trouble. We all stare at it. It doesn't move. Relevant info here. Kay is terrified of dogs at this point. The silhouette is probably 10 feet tall, pointed ears. Think Great Dane. That's exactly what the silhouette looked. Girl 2, is that a scarecrow? Me, I don't know. I didn't notice it when we came in. Girl 1, is it a horse? Me, it kind of looks like a dog, actually. Kay, fuck no, I'm not getting out if that's a dog. Me, let's just get the sign real quick and go. There aren't any dogs that tall. Kay, fuck you, I'm not getting out. Me, it isn't moving. Then it cocks its head to the side. Had I been the driver, I would have turned the headlights on, at least to know what it was. But at that point, everyone's freaked out. I slammed the car in reverse and peeled out of there as fast as they could. I think about that night on and off, and going by logic, I've assumed it was something like a llama, which isn't that uncommon for the area, but llamas don't get 10 feet tall. Another theory is that it's a horse, but it wasn't nearly wide enough, possibly emaciated. But there was no indication of a mane in the silhouette, and the head cock to the side offered no indication of a long snout that you think you would have noticed if it was an equine type of animal. Today's third part of the upload. I have something interesting to share, and after thinking for a bit, I wanted to bring up the mysterious black dog that is often seen in the United States, but a lot over in Europe, especially England. So this experience is that if you see a black dog more than 3 times, that you'll eventually meet your death. I've known a bit about this phenomenon for a bit, not exactly sure if it's an actual animal or something like a Dogman or a hellhound, but anyway. I have an experience to share with a family member that did some strange things. This is what happened. This family member, I'll call him Joe, was young, about 18, and this was back in the early 80s. He was in high school and hanging out with a few friends, searching his friend's attic, when they came across 2 very old books. One was the Lamegdodon, and the other the Book of Shadows. Joe and his friends took the books back to Joe's house, and one Friday night, when they got high and were drinking, they took the books out, and from one of the books summoned a demon using a huge drawn-out pentagram. This certain spell in the book was a spell to come across treasure and riches in your life. After the spell, Joe said he felt something weird but shrugged it off and continued his daily life, such as going to school. He would walk from school from his really nice home in the rural area of Pennsylvania he lived in. So after the spell, Joe was walking home from school a few days later. His house, which is on a dead-end road, and he comes close to the front of his house and notices a very large black dog sitting on his front door, just staring at him. He said it would not take its eyes off of him. Whenever he moved, the dog's head would follow. Joe, being startled by this, ran around the side of the house through the back door that led to his kitchen. He closed the door behind him and called his dog Prince. Now, Prince was a big, strong shepherd mix that would fight other dogs and usually win, so Joe called Prince and didn't get an answer. He eventually found Prince cowering under the kitchen table, frightened. So Joe creeped out from all of what was going on, went to peek out of the front door, and the black dog was still there, staring right up at him. Joe was a tough guy, not much really scared him, but something about this dog gave him the chills, and he thought, could this be related to the spell I did? Anyway, after some time, the dog eventually vanished from his front doorstep, and Joe continued his daily life. And a week from then was having a party at his house where everyone was smoking and drinking. During this, Joe's friend was in the bathroom, so Joe went out to the back porch where there was a row of bushes you could pee in. Let me add that it's very dark and late. Joe unzips his pants to relieve himself and looks down, and there's the same black dog staring up at him, silently looking right into his eyes. Joe said he was horrified and zipped his pants back up and ran inside. So after this, Joe was absolutely terrified, thinking what he had actually done during that spell he had done to find treasure. He was sure this thing, an intelligent creature, and possibly wanted to talk to him. Joe didn't want to have a chat with it, so he got the 2 books together the next day and slid them down a storm drain up the street. He could clearly see the books lying down in the drain when he left them. Joe continued his normal life, when all of a sudden, a few days later, he got the urge to get the books back. He didn't know why the urge was so strong, but he went back there with his backpack to go retrieve these books, and bent down when no one was looking. He said they had vanished and were nowhere to be seen. Kind of puzzled, he went back home and continued on with his life. A little while later was cutting his neighbor's grass while the neighbor watched on the front porch. And he said while he was pushing the mower, he noticed the black dog running towards him, and it jumped right for his throat. But at an instant it was close to biting him. A large white dog jumped up and rammed into the black dog, and Joe fell over and was puzzled, like what the hell was that? He stopped mowing and went up to his neighbor and said, "Did you see that?" And the neighbor said, "I saw you fall down." He apparently didn't see what Joe saw. Joe spotted this mysterious dog 3 times and was convinced it was a demon in disguise as a dog to come and make some type of deal with him. He was sure it was summoned from the spell that was done out of either book, the Book of Shadows or the Lamegdon. Joe lived up till the age of 52, had quite a hard life, but was a great person. Got one huge settlement from a back injury, but never found some great treasure or fortune. Joe was also convinced that the white dog on the 3rd sighting was some type of angel in dog form that was fending off the black dog from stealing his soul and sealing the deal. Alright guys, that is today's upload. I wanted to share that last encounter because talking to Maddie from Australia the other day, we had really a great conversation. And we were just talking about, and I've said this a couple times on the channel, that the Dogman kind of reminds me of a hellhound or the black dog, beside it being a physical form. But how do we know these are not either? Or how do we know that the Dogman is not one of these or these one of the Dogman? They all like the darkness. They all supposedly like to be in cemeteries or in cold, clammy earth areas. They have either red or yellowish amber colored eyes. And they like to mess with human beings. I don't know if they're the same thing, but I find it interesting that the similarities are there. It's pretty crazy. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed today's upload as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I want to thank everybody as normal, because without you guys, this channel would be absolutely nothing. You guys are really why I do this now. I'll admit right now, before I started the channel, it was to help me deal with things that was going on in my life. And when I started realizing that I am a platform to let people share their encounters to help themselves, that's what keeps us going. You know, I will never ever claim that I help anybody, because I don't. I have a platform and I allow people to come on or send their encounters in to share, to feel better. You guys are the ones helping each other through the comment section, through sharing your encounters with each other. You know, I'm just the platform holder, I guess. But you know, it really makes this channel is a very key, important part of my life. My daughters are, and my health is, my parents are, and this channel is a very large part of my life. So thank you so much. And with that, I'm going to bid you farewell.